Hey y'all, welcome to Book Crusade, the channel where we gallivant the world of all things reading and writing, and I'm your host, Shaylynn Marks. So, for our very first official episode, I'm going to do a little bit of a story time, and I just have to say, I'm so excited to be here. I could no longer fight off the peer pressure raised from my friends in the AuthorTube and BookTube universe, and alas, this channel is officially born. And please, if you can, stick to the end because I'm going to be doing a little discount and you'll need the promo code on my chapbooks on my website. And when I say little, it's like 50% off. So definitely stick around for that. And I'll also be giving you a brief overview of the types of content I plan on making for y'all going forward. So I started writing at the age of 6, and if you're an 80s or 90s kid, you probably remember like the types of little diaries that was out back then. And mine had the pink lined pages on the inside. It was amazing. And if you would assume that I would make like little journal entries and stuff like that, but for whatever reason, I gravitated towards poetry. And that's the only thing I did. I didn't write a single entry in there in like a typical sentence structure. So, like, whether it was a crazy dream I had, something that went on at school, or even just like watching my birds in my backyard, I was writing everything on a little ABAB form with cute little titles. So that was my vibe. And I want to say fourth grade was when, unfortunately, 9/11 occurred, and it compelled me to write a poem called The Flag. And I had the amazing opportunity to actually recite that poem in my hometown city park in the little band shell. And I actually made it in the newspaper. So just a cute little thing, that you may or may not be able to Google about me. I'm not sure. You'd have to look back to, geez, I guess like 2002, maybe 2001, because this was like the summer after 9/11 happened. Maybe it was like around like Memorial Day or something like that. I don't know. But it happened. It was a thing. And as time progressed, or I guess before I get into that, some of the books I really loved back then was, for example, the Dear America series. They're kind of think about like the American Girl dolls. It's kind of like that same vibe. And they were mostly historical fiction. So there was two that I really love to read and check out. Like I probably read them at least each 3 or 4 times. One was with the Titanic, and then the other one had to do with World War II. And if you have anybody in your family, any type of youth in your family, and you want to gift like a really nice book for, if you can find a good vintage copy, or if they still print them, like make more updated versions, I have no idea. But definitely look into the Dear America series because they were just so good. And I think it's just such a great way to, get young minds to start understanding the world around them and to harness things like empathy and compassion for others. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful series. Other than that, a, a couple that stick out to me is the Nancy Drew series. My grandmother actually got me into them, and I still have all of my yellow hard copies of them. And I just want to pat like Young Shay on the back because they're literally in almost perfect conditions. And I'm like so thankful for that. They're still like on one of my bookshelves in my house. So yeah. And the last one I definitely have to give a shout out to is for whatever reason, I was always obsessed with stories at sea. And they had the I think it was like the some sort of like abridged classics, and they would have like some like pictures in the inside. And the one that I love the most, because they were all like classic literatures, just classic literature stories, just abridged and compressed down. But the one that I liked the most was Moby Dick. So yeah, and then as time went on in middle school, I was in like either sixth or seventh grade when George Bush won the second election for his second term, should I say, and Al Gore lost. And I remember a lot of the anger and disdain in my family from that. And it kind of, when you take like a middle school mind and combine, that type of anger and learning politics and everything and mix it in with your newfound love for punk rock music, I started writing songs. And I still write music and songs to this day. That's something I'll carry with me forever. And but that was kind of like my focus. I kind of stopped doing poetry for a little bit and just kept songwriting and stuff like that. And then when high school progressed, I took yet again another pivot. I was reading a lot of Robert Frost. I was reading Emily Dickinson. And over time, I found Bukowski, and that kind of distorted everything. Because what I really loved about formal poetry was I looked at it kind of like as a puzzle. And I wanted to get, that like rhyme and meter down like succinctly. And I loved rising to that challenge and trying to make my own, like message to convey in these certain formal poems and trying to still adhere to that objective criteria was kind of like my thing. But then when I started getting into these other reverse writers and reading more about them, and even just like watching Def Jam poetry, watching that as well as even just because this was 2008, 2009, I was like around 16 now. And that was also the time in early YouTube where we had a lot of really amazing spoken word poets such as Ken Arkine and Andrea Gibson. And that kind of made me Frankenstein the way that I wrote. So I took a lot of those elements from that formal understanding. But then I stopped rhyming so much. I stopped caring so much about the little details. And I was really focusing more on making like a really intense, extended metaphor to convey a certain feeling or a certain moment. It was more situational and not quite story yet. Um, and as time has progressed, I want to say when I got out of high school, I was getting more into drugs and I started kind of getting more so into bands and singing. So I kind of left poetry on the side. And I have fortunately been sober. Um, it'll be 10 years on November 1st. Because, no, sorry, it'll be 9 years on November 1st. I tend to forget. I just know it was November 1st, 2016 was my first day sober. So, yeah, during that time, again, I was like in bands doing shows and stuff like that and just focusing on songwriting. And over the years, as I kind of progressed and went through the highs and lows of, working on my sobriety and getting my life together, I started working in corporate America. Gotta love it. Not really. I Something like changed when I turned 30 because I went on a trip with my friends to Salem, Massachusetts, and like something just like shifted in my brain. And I was like, I need change because I'm just not feeling any type of like purpose or impact. And I thought about my inner child and what really, resonated me when I was young. And of course, songwriting is huge. But before I was songwriting, I was writing poetry. And I just took a leap of faith and I decided to go back to college. And I can happily say now that I have graduated with my BFA in creative writing. I got an advanced achievement award. I got valedictorian for my associate's degree as well. And I had a 3.97 GPA, all while still working full time and being a reader part time for Uncharted Literary Magazine. And during these years of my undergrad, when you start getting professional opinions on your short stories and like your writing and whatnot, not only do you end up inevitably improving your skill, but you kind of start gaining confidence because when you have someone else that actually like believes in you and likes your work, it does impact you in a type of way. And I decided to just see what happens and submit one of my short stories for publication, and it got accepted to the first place I sent it to, and it was called Out of Refills. You can find it on my website. It's shaylynnmarks.com/works. I have like a breakdown of all the different categories of writing that I've put out, whether it be nonfiction articles or poetry or fiction. So definitely check it out. But yeah, they were my first publication ever. And I just kind of like went from there. And as I was looking around and exploring stuff on YouTube, I became acquainted with Matt Wall. And if you haven't checked out his channel, please do so. I'm going to have his link in the comments, of course. I mean, sorry, his link in the info box. And I started joining the Anarchy crew and hanging out on their Zooms and everything. And definitely check that out too. It's a really great community, very supportive. And I was able to get poetry published through certain broadsides he put out called The Blood Rag, because that's when he started Poetic Anarchy Press. But then I had the benefit of being in the very first, sorry, it's like maybe a little out of focus and the lighting isn't the greatest. The very first Bloodshed review. So it's kind of like the old school chapbooks, which I'll definitely make a video for in the future. Um, and this one was the first issue, and it had Mindy Semmingson and Jeff Taylor, both amazing poets. And what was cool is that you had, your editor's note, and then you had some poetry in the front from one artist, some poetry in the back from another, and then in the middle, these, sticky note yellow pages, was my first poetry chapbook. Sorry, it's kind of out of focus there. There we go. Ish. Sorry, I don't know why it's being so funky. There we go. Okay. So this was Fornicating with the Elements, and these were kind of coming of age meets nature stories. I kind of went for a more narrative feel at the time with my writing, and it was so much fun to make and be a part of. And when I was able to sell so many copies of them on my website, as well as, through Matt, he was able to sell them out pretty quick. It kind of inspired me to keep going. And so I put out another chapbook, and sorry, this one's a little smudged and I got some water on it. But this is when Pheromones came out. And this one was kind of a situationship I had with another woman because I am bisexual. And it was again another narrative type of chapbook. I try to kind of think of like the stages of grief, going from denial to acceptance of something. And I had a lot of fun making this. If you can't tell, it's kind of got like the shimmer cardstock. And I researched the correct kind of like chemical compound on the front there. And what's a lot of fun too is that the inner pages are cream, and then the closer you get to the center, the pinker they get. And I will let you be the one to understand the psychology of that. I felt very witty. But yeah, and that very fortunately sold out. I now have a second printing of that where all of the pages are pink. Um, and then last year, since it was the 1 year anniversary of my Fornicating with the Elements chapbook, I decided to do a second issue. And this one, I used like the brown craft paper, and then on the inside, I bought this like scroll paper to kind of give it that, you know, medieval kind of like vibe. And I added a couple 2024 poems in there too. And that is available on my website as well. And outside of writing poetry, right now I am doing a cozy murder mystery. And the alias for it for now is going to be Project Pumpkin. And one of the things I'd love to do on this channel is kind of show you some of the behind the scenes, how I do my outlines, how I brainstorm, things like that. So when I say book crusade with all things reading and writing, obviously I want to get into writing tips and stuff of that nature, but I also want to get into some of the things that maybe us creatives aren't like super thrilled to do. Like if you're someone that wants to submit your work to be published somewhere, or if you want your, if you're trying to get your novel in with a literary agent, how to pitch your work. It's a very important thing. And I'll probably have another separate video just kind of going in more about that too, because some people feel like they shouldn't, get paid for their work because it's something they have such a joy doing. And I totally respect people who can do that, and can make that work for them, but at the same time, you're putting your soul into it. You're putting your time. Time is something we can never get back. You know what I mean? And, you put so much effort into it to create this thing. And, whenever we go to local like vendors and stuff where you're buying handmade products, like this is a handmade product. This is, even if you have it printed from some company, the fact that you wrote these words and took the time to write them, edit them, and spill out, some of your guts, I believe firmly that you should be paid for that. I would love to give my money to someone who is making art. This is art, people, and you should be valued for your work, you know? And yeah, so outside of that, I can very happily say that I am no longer in the corporate world, and or at least not in the call center world, balancing spreadsheets, and I'm now doing freelancing. So if you're a business out there that needs your brand elevated, whether it be a marketing strategy, marketing materials, or even just SEO content writing, I'm your person. Proofreading, editing, ghostwriting, hit me up. Hit up info@shaylynnmarks.com and we can talk more. But this is kind of some of the stuff that I'm doing. SAS Magazine. They are amazing, amazing, amazing. Definitely check them out. sasmagazine.com. They are a women's lifestyle magazine. They're one of the only ones in my area here in Western Maryland. And they do so much for the community, especially for women in business. And there's so much amazing stuff in there. They do what's called like Women to Watch and Top Women, where we highlight women. For like the wellness one, for example, the wellness issue, we found top surgeons in the area and did an interview with them and a photo shoot and so much fun stuff. But we also cover fashion and beauty on all sorts of stuff like that. So definitely check out their website. And again, you can also just go right onto my website, shaylynnmarks.com/works. There is an article section under the works page, and it will have every one of the publications that I've done for them because they also put out web content. And I've had so much fun writing all sorts of stuff for them. So definitely, definitely check it out if you want something a little different to read. But yeah, so this is where I am now. And speaking of my chapbooks, if you want to get one of these bad boys here, go to my website. And whenever are at like the checkout, you want to put in the code Crusade, CRUSADE. Put that in the little promo code, and you'll get $5 off my chapbooks. So essentially, you'll be able to get both of them for the price of one, and that each one is signed. So yeah, definitely check it out. And I just want to say thank you so much for sticking with me this far in the video. And make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, because some of the stuff I want to do going forward won't just be the story time type stuff, and it won't always be like writing advice, but it's also going to be literally crusading. So I plan on going to bookstores, especially local bookstores. And again, I'm in Western Maryland. So if there's anything in like the greater DMV area, um, please send me an email at Shaylin at, I'm sorry, not Shaylin at, info@shaylynnmarks.com. Just put in the subject line Crusade. And if you have any types of places you'd love for me to visit and kind of like check out and explore, just list them off. If you can give me an address, that'd be great. If you can give me the website, that'd be great. But if you have like the name and like the general city state, like I'm open to it, if it's something I can drive to practically, you know. And on top of just like bookstores, I'd love to even just go to historical sites in relation to authors. So again, like I said, I'm from Maryland. So I could potentially do what I would love to do an Edgar Allan Poe day. So with it being Baltimore, we could go to his death site. We could go to the Poe Museum, things like that. We can go to his actual grave and just kind of do like a little overview of that. And I'm only a few hours from Richmond, so I could also go to, other areas. Like their Poe Museum's amazing. I just went there over the summer again, and it was a lot of fun. So I could definitely look into maybe going there too. So yeah, and if you are an author and you need someone to review your book, send it to me, please. I would love to do that for you because I would love to just, you know, uplift people's work and just support each other because that's what these things are all about. And again, just email info@shaylynnmarks.com and just put book review in the subject line and we can connect and see what we can do. And I'd love to even just like interview authors as well. And while I might not get, I might not get right away like a lot of local books, so please bear with me. I also have stuff that I'm just constantly reading that I'm definitely want to do book reviews on as well. Not even just stuff that's brand new, but maybe stuff that you've never heard of and like overlooked. Like right now I'm on like a huge mystery and I've always loved historical fiction. So like those two are like what I love to read the most. But if, again, if you're an author starting out and you have this romanticy book you want me to like check out, like I'll read it. I don't care. I'm open to pretty much anything. So send it my way, please. So that's it. Thank you so much again. Please hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And in the comments below, if you could, I think it'd be really cute and fun just to kind of get to know everybody out there and start like, meeting everybody. Is it could be one of two things. So tell me either one or more childhood books that like really hit for you as a kid. And if you can't think of anything, or if you weren't like a really big reader, tell me kind of the stuff that you love to read now or what inspires you to write if you're a writer. So, yeah, thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.